Progress in the satellite project cannot be taken as an index of our progress in ballistic missile work. Our satellite program has never been conducted as a race with other nations. Rather, it has been carefully scheduled as part of the scientific work of the International Geophysical Year. I consider our country's satellite program to be well designed and properly scheduled to achieve the scientific purposes for which it was initiated. We are, therefore, carrying the program forward in keeping with our arrangements with the international scientific community.
The White House is the scene of a significant ceremony as President Eisenhower decorates outgoing Defense Secretary Wilson with the Medal of Freedom and thanks him for his service to the nation. His successor, Neil McElroy, is sworn in and congratulated by the chief executive, who laughingly comments, "Now you're a bureaucrat." The Defense Department, with its $39 billion appropriation, is a post demanding one of Washington's top administrators. Operation Farside, the Air Force space research project based on Eniwetok Island, prepares for the launching of an ambitious stab into outer space via a rocket firing from a balloon at the height of some 19 miles. The missile is a light, 1,900-pound, four-stage rocket designed not to orbit like the Sputnik, but to carry instruments higher than ever before attained and radio its data back to Earth. 4 previous attempts failed. Defense Department films show the 5th. It goes without a hitch, all the way. Purpose of firing from the balloon is to blast off in rarefied atmosphere at a height where air friction is at a minimum. Data obtained here will be of signal value both in the conquest of outer space and in America's development of an intercontinental missile, a height reached by the rocket an estimated 4,000 miles. Man's farthest stride into outer space. Following a 3-day conference with President Eisenhower, Prime Minister Macmillan of Great Britain tells of the NATO pooling of technical skills and materials. He also gives an emphatic statement of free nation aims.
We are not allying ourselves to boss the world. We are making ourselves better prepared and better organized to serve the world.
The first International Atoms for Peace Award is made by President Eisenhower, a gold medal and $75,000 honorarium to Niels Bohr, Denmark's leading citizen and the world's foremost nuclear scientist. New honors for a living legend of science. Fairgrounds receive an unearthly visitation with thousands of cheering kids on hand, alerted in advance to expect not Martians, not Russians, but Santa, traveling by Sputnik, accompanied by Mutnik. Santa keeps on top of the news as he begins his pre-Christmas tour of the country, with first stop, as always, at Allentown, thanks to the efforts of Max Hess. Sputnik, space helmets, and Santa. There's a jolly Christmas ahead for us all. For Little Gonzaga University, Bing Crosby's alma mater, this is the day when dreams come true, and a shining addition is made to the campus. Der Bingle greets Jean-Claude Lefebvre, 7'3" French basketball player at the university. For the occasion, he is joined by his sons and pretty wife. The faculty solemnizes the occasion as they proceed to the site of the old Groner's gift to the university. Gonzaga's most famous alumnus unveils the plaque marking the $750,000 library which he has financed over the years. Der Bingle records a new note for the books. Reunion in America. Mrs. Sang Kum Ko of Korea arrives after a 3-year struggle by her son to have her admitted. Mrs. Ko is the mother of the North Korean pilot who flew a Russian MiG to the Allies, thereby earning the $100,000 reward offered. Her son, now a student in an American college, has Americanized his name to Kenneth Rowe. Happy aftermath to the Korean War for a man who chose freedom. Remember the old woman who lived in a shoe and had so many children she didn't know what to do? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Paul-Émile Tremblay of Quebec are in about the same predicament. They've had 17 children in 10 years, 7 sets of twins amongst them. That's enough to make a mother go trembly all over. But Mama Rosa knows what to do. As special guests at a big hotel, they have breakfast in bed and a waiter to do the work.
As of now, the United States is strong. Our nation has today, and has had for some years, enough power in its strategic retaliatory forces to bring near annihilation to the war-making capabilities of any country. Our scientists assure me that we are well ahead of the Soviets in the nuclear field, both in quantity and in quality. We intend to stay ahead. We have fired 3 rockets to heights between 2,000 and 4,000 miles and have received back much valuable information about outer space. One difficult obstacle on the way to producing a useful long-range weapon is that of bringing a missile back from outer space without its burning up like a meteor because of friction with the Earth's atmosphere. Our scientists and engineers have solved that problem. This object here in my office is the nose cone of an experimental missile fired over a long distance. It has been hundreds of miles into the outer space and back. Here it is, completely unharmed, intact. What the world needs today, even more than a giant leap into outer space, is a giant step toward peace.
America's first attempt to launch a satellite. A 6.5-inch sphere weighing just over 3 pounds was checked out by scientists and declared ready. A great wave of advanced publicity focused attention at Cape Canaveral, Florida, for the launching of Test Vehicle 3 of Project Vanguard, a preliminary to the scheduled launching of a 21-pound satellite in March. What happened is already unhappy history. Another setback for the United States in the race into outer space. Here are official Defense Department films of the launching of the 72-foot missile, a loss of thrust, and fall back to Earth in split seconds. Is classified. Neither the satellite program nor our missile development is affected, said Acting Defense Secretary Quarles. It's only an incident in the perfection of the Vanguard satellite system. Scenes reminiscent of the bomb blitz of London follow Britain's worst train collision in many years. The death toll nears 100, with hundreds injured, as a train with crowds of commuters and Christmas shoppers is hit by another on the outskirts of the city. As careening cars strike a bridge overhead, it collapses on the wreckage in a fog-bound nightmare. As the hours pass, the grim search produces body after body, and rescue workers reveal still more. Once again, London fog claims its toll, this time in a stunning catastrophe. In the Amsterdam Aquarium, which is celebrating its 75th birthday, the fish is an aristocrat. Calm and serene is the turtle in his Biscay Bay water. Racing fans will, of course, recognize the seahorse. They come from the 7 seas, these weirdies, but beware of the coral fish. They're poison. And this handsome lout just looks tough. He's gentle as a kitten. And here's old rock and roll himself, on stilts yet. The patriarch is the conger eel, who has ruled the roost for years. With stunning force, a gas explosion virtually levels the small town of Villa Rica and reduces its business section to a mass of twisted rubble. At least 12 are killed outright, and many of the 29 injured are on the critical list.
More victims are frantically sought in the debris as fire departments from neighboring towns lend help. So acute is the town's disaster that guardsmen are summoned to keep order as a shocked and stunned populace seeks to recover from the blast which started in a store and enveloped the entire adjacent area. Slowly seeping from mains, the gas became a miniature A-bomb to Villa Rica. Prince Bernhard is among the interested spectators viewing a demonstration of a new Dutch ramjet helicopter. The little jet engines are mounted in the tips of the rotors, eliminate complicated piston engines, clutches, and transmissions. And a self-adjusting rotor results in remarkable flight characteristics. There's something out of this world about the little whirlybird at night with flames shooting out from the four rotor blade tips. You might see one some night and say, why, that's a flying saucer.
They took the blue from the skies and the pretty girl's eyes and a touch of Old Glory's hue, and gave it to the men who proudly wear the U.S. Air Force blue. The U.S. Air Force blue. Oh, they are men with a dream on America's team. They're a rugged and ready crew. And you can bet your boots the world looks up to U.S. Air Force blue. To U.S. Air Force blue. They know where they're going. They've set their course. The sky's no limit in the Air Force. They took the blue from the skies and the pretty girl's eyes and a touch of Old Glory's hue, and gave it to the men who proudly wear the U.S. Air Force blue. And you can wear it too. The U.S. Air Force
Secretary of State Dulles arrives in Ankara for the meeting of the Baghdad Alliance and finds the Turkish capital a troubled city. Two bombs, set off just a few hours before his arrival, blasted American property, the American Publications Bureau, and a warehouse wall inside the embassy compound. Foreign agents are blamed, for Turkey is staunchly pro-Western. But the incident sounded a grim note for the opening of a council meeting designed to steady the somewhat shaky alliance. Problems facing the council include the desire of its members that America formally join and supply greater aid. Neither desire was satisfied, but progress was made. America pledged $10 million for a new communications network, and the first steps were taken for a unified command of all Baghdad-packed forces. The technological wonders of the age of missiles include a lot besides the mighty rockets. For instance, one of the world's most amazing cameras, tested at a recent launching of Thor. The camera is 15 miles from the launching pad. Despite the distance, despite the rocket's fantastic acceleration, the camera brings the Thor into sharp close-up and tracks along its trajectory, as these Department of Defense films show. On a power-driven mount with a giant telescopic lens, ROTI, recording optical tracking instrument, can follow Thor to the hundreds of miles high peak of its flight. A far-seeing eye to match the reach of our long-range rockets. At Cape Canaveral, Florida, the Army's Jupiter-C rocket is readied for America's second attempt to launch a space satellite. No relation to the IRBM Jupiter, this is a rebuilt Redstone, a 200-mile missile carrying, instead of a warhead, 3 stages of solid fuel booster rockets and the Explorer, a 6-foot bullet only inches across, crammed with electronic gear. 30 pounds of payload. This close-up of the United States edition of Sputnik was made at a press conference with leaders of the scientific teams, Dr. Werner von Braun, Dr. James Van Allen, and Dr. William Pickering, a three-way collaboration between private industry, academic science, and the military. Jupiter C stands poised on its launching pad. The hours-long countdown approaches zero, a moment of enormous tension, for every missile launching is still an experiment. Any one of tens of thousands of things can go wrong with catastrophic results. But all that can be done to assure perfection has been done. The moment is at hand. The countdown reaches zero. Some 3 minutes later, Explorer is in orbit, broadcasting to the world its coded scientific data. Cosmic ray intensity, meteor impact, solar radiation. These are the dry facts that will help carry man ever farther into the age of space. Two presidents, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt and Shukri al-Kawatli of Syria, meet to make history in Cairo with the federation of their two states into one, the United Arab Republic. The news electrified the entire Middle East. In Cairo, cheering throngs followed the two leaders through the streets exultantly. The Al-Azhar Mosque is the scene of prayers for the new union, which has already invited all Arab states to join. One, Yemen, is expected to bid for inclusion. The new state numbers 30 million, largest in the Mideast. Nasser has set vast forces in motion with this act. The effect on the precariously balanced Middle East, no one today can prophesy. The rest of the world, America, Russia, Israel, all remain cautiously quiet, awaiting the events that will follow on Gamal Nasser's moment of triumph. Vanguard Test Vehicle 2 stands on the launching pad at Cape Canaveral in the Navy's second attempt to place a satellite into orbit. In its nose, a grapefruit-sized metal sphere. The huge rocket, 3 stages of liquid fuel components, is actually still experimental. For Vanguard, every flight is a test flight. Takeoff is flawless. December 6th, Vanguard 1 lost thrust only 4 feet off the pad and crashed. That flaw was corrected. But in Vanguard's tens of thousands of delicate parts, its miles of electrical circuits, there's room for lots to go wrong. And the slightest malfunction at this stage means this. One circuit in the control system breaks down and Defense Department cameras record a pinwheel of fire. Another disaster for Project Vanguard. Despite a sore throat, President Eisenhower holds his second White House press conference of 1958 as scheduled, with comment on his own voice as well as on world affairs.
Of my vocal cords, it would be very helpful to me if you'd ask very long questions that could be answered yes and no.
John Scott of the Associated Press. In his latest letter to you, Premier Obama opposed a foreign ministers conference because, as he put it, of the biased position of certain possible participants. What do you think of this remark?
Well, I rather thought he must have been talking about Gromyko. But I will say this. We're working very hard this morning. Matter of fact, I have an appointment with the Secretary of State this afternoon to see whether there's any possible approach that we can make what will be appealing and which might lead under after proper preparation to some kind of meeting.
Atomic weapons come to Korea in a dramatic gesture by the United States to counter the red buildup north of the 38th parallel. On the scene, the Honest John rocket launcher, field tested and operational, and the 280mm atomic cannon. The occasion is noteworthy, too, as one of the last reviews held in Korea by General Arthur Trudeau, now First Corps Commander, due to succeed General James Gavin as the Army's Chief of Research and Development in the Pentagon. In Korea, the Army's top missile man deploys the weapons of the rocket and atom age to redress the balance of power. On the 10th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, day-long memorial ceremonies demonstrate that the name of India's great spiritual leader has lost none of its power. Prime Minister Nehru places an offering on the flower-heaped memorial platform that marks the site of Gandhi's cremation, a national shrine. Nehru is joined by every ranking political figure for the occasion, which was marked by an historical exhibition spanning Gandhi's life. An ambulance corpsman in the Boer War. Later, in the years when Gandhi was at once nationalist leader and the conscience of his nation, a world-famous figure for his successful passive non-resistance to British rule, and finally a martyr slain by a Hindu fanatic. In memory of Gandhi and his personal austerity, Nehru and other national leaders spent hours at the spinning wheel, still disciples of the Mahatma, India's great soul. At Bad Gastein, Austria, the World Ski Championships. A field of 78 represents 24 countries. Bud Werner of Steamboat Springs gives the best performance by an American in the history of the championships. Werner takes 4th place in the slalom and remains a contender for the combined title with good prospects in the 2 remaining events. Mihara Igaya of Japan. In his Dartmouth days, they called him Chuck. Nobody calls him Lucky here. Leader by a full second in the first heat, Igaya ends slowly and finishes 3rd. Many weren't even that lucky on the treacherous icy course. The Russians took spills in both heats. Their best man tied for 26th place. But every contestant got to the bottom of the hill, one way or another. Defending champion Tony Seiler has a bad day for him. Seiler gains precious split seconds with his stick work despite a spill in the last gate. He captures the runner-up slot. Teammate Josel Reeder makes 2 flawless runs down the 67-gate course. Runner-up in the first heat, Reeder picks up time in the second with a daring course, cutting each gate close for the straightest possible run. Reeder's total time, 115.1 seconds. For the new slalom champ, congratulations from teammate and ex-champion Tony Seiler.
Near Munich, a fierce blaze marks the wreck of a British airliner. In attempting takeoff, it brushed some trees at the end of the runway, then dropped 60 feet into a house and a gasoline storage shed. 21 died in the crash. 23 more are gravely injured. A shocking disaster that has a doubly great impact on Britain, for on the passenger list was the Manchester United soccer team. National champions, they were returning from Belgrade after tying Yugoslavia's crack team in the European Championship competition. Headed for the semifinals, they were national heroes, every man. The twisted wreckage of this airliner marks the site of a national tragedy. It is for Americans as if the Milwaukee Braves had been aboard. A bitter loss to the world of sports, one that will long be mourned. Old soldiers fade away, but old M47 tanks stay massive as ever. So if you have an old frame house,
Return to freedom at Panmunjom for 26 of those aboard the South Korean airliner hijacked by red agents. Receipts for the passengers were signed reluctantly by South Koreans who feared this might be taken as recognition of the communist regime. But the passengers and crew were freed as the Reds backed down after days of flat refusal. Even as the returnees, including the American pilot and co-pilot, were being joyously welcomed, the North Korean regime raised a new crisis with the shooting down of a patrolling American jet. The Navy's first submarine, designed and built from the keel up to carry and launch guided missiles and sub-killing guided torpedoes, goes into commission at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. Other missile-carrying subs were converted from conventional models. The Grayback, with her built-in hangar deck for storing supersonic Regulus missiles and with an exceptionally thick hull for deep cruising, is the first of her kind. And first, and perhaps last, for the Grayback is diesel-powered, while the submarine service is going towards nuclear power for the future. But as of today, the Grayback is tops in her class. An atomic bomb breaks loose from a mounting shackle in a B-47 jet over Florence, South Carolina, plummets to Earth, causing a sensational freak accident. There was near disaster for those within range of the TNT, that is the bomb's trigger. 6 were injured. The home of Walter Gregg was turned into a shambles. In the Gregg yard, the blast tore a 35-foot deep crater. But despite the havoc, authorities emphasized the explosion was not a nuclear blast. The bomb was not assembled for firing, standard procedure during transportation. No accident could make it explode, and there was no fission, no radioactive fission products revealed as the Air Force scoured the area in an intensive search for any information of value following the first accident of its kind in history. Automation, long a prediction, is revealed as reality. In this first plant of its kind, production is automatic, entirely controlled by electronics. A typewriter-like keyboard is the master control, setting out data and instructions on a punched tape, which in turn feeds the electronic computer. The computer translates the punch tape and sends the results directly into the machine tool production line, issuing coded instructions, automatically checking results. For example, the proper size drill is selected and moved into position. This new system, developed by the Hughes Aircraft Company, makes the use of precision mass production techniques possible for small plants. By cutting the time between the engineering work on a given part and its production, it cuts costs as well. Only occasional inspections and quality control checks are needed to make sure that everything stays on the beam in the electronically operated factory. After 2 much-publicized failures, Project Vanguard scores a bullseye on its 3rd firing at Cape Canaveral. A grapefruit-sized satellite is set into the nose cone of a 3-stage rocket, and the launching routine begins. The countdown goes with amazing ease, even faster than that of the Jupiter C. Only 16 seconds off a precision schedule, the Vanguard blasts off. It's one of the most perfect flights ever seen at the Missile Center, and there's not a hitch along the way as the tiny moon is catapulted into the farthest orbit yet, 2,500 miles out. This launching was basically an experiment to test the rocket's flight pattern, preparatory to the launching of a 21-inch satellite later this year. Successful orbiting of a 6-inch moon was sheer profit as far as the engineers were concerned, making the first good news from Project Vanguard very good news indeed for all America. As the opening date of the Brussels World's Fair nears, the elaborate pavilions of the 48 nations taking part are rushed to completion. America's building, the world's largest freestanding circular structure, will be an architectural landmark. Scores of international and commercial groups are also taking part in the rivalry for the attention of the 40 million visitors expected. One of the commercial exhibits is a vast diorama of the Belgian countryside, which will model a prophecy of progress in transportation. Under a complex electronic control system, the diorama will show the transformation from today into the world of the future. The atomium, fitting symbol for the first World's Fair of the atomic age. At Brooklyn Navy Yard, the longest, largest, most powerful fighting ship in the world awaits christening. She's the fourth and largest Forrestal-class carrier, and the fifth ship to bear the name Independence. The first was a 10-gun sloop commissioned in 1776. The latest will carry 100 supersonic jets with H-bomb capability. The most powerful radar aboard any carrier helps make her a potent counter-weapon to Russia's submarine fleet. Christened with a proud name by Mrs. Thomas Gates, wife of the Secretary of the Navy, is USS Independence, over 1,000 feet of matchless fighting machine.